You know, just last week I was at the airport and I witnessed something absolutely fascinating. A husband and wife were standing at the check-in counter and the airline staff told them their luggage was overweight. Now, what happened next was pure comedy, but also deeply insightful. The husband immediately started calculating, okay, we need to remove 7 kilograms. Let me take out these 2 books. That's about 800 grams. Then maybe these shoes. He was treating it like a mathematical equation, like an engineer solving a problem on a whiteboard. But the wife, she had a completely different approach. She wasn't thinking about kilograms and calculations. She was thinking about the entire journey ahead. She said, "But darling, we'll need those books for the hotel room in the evening. And those shoes, remember we have that wedding to attend on the 3rd day. And what about the gifts we're carrying for the hosts?" She wasn't just solving the luggage problem. She was seeing the entire trip, every scenario, every person they'd meet, every moment they'd experience. And I stood there, pretending to check my phone, but actually watching this unfold, thinking to myself, this is it. This is the difference. This is why we need to understand that men and women don't just think differently, they think from entirely different dimensions. It's like one is looking at a photograph and the other is watching a movie. Both are seeing the same situation, but one sees a moment, the other sees a story. Now, I'm not here to say one is better than the other. That's not the point at all. I'm here to help us understand that these differences are not problems to be solved. They're perspectives to be celebrated. Because when we understand why women think differently, we don't just improve our relationships, we become better human beings. We become more complete. We access a wisdom that has been available to us all along, but we've been too busy trying to prove our point to actually listen. Think about it. How many times have you been in an argument and you're absolutely convinced you're right? You've got logic, you've got facts, you've got reason on your side. But somehow, the woman in your life, whether it's your mother, your wife, your sister, your colleague, she's saying something completely different, and you just can't understand why she doesn't see what's so obvious to you. And the more you explain, the more frustrated both of you become. I've been there. Oh, I've been there so many times, and every time I thought, why can't she just understand this simple logic? But you know what I've learned over the years. The question I was asking was wrong. The question is not, why can't she understand? The question is, what is she understanding that I'm not? So today, I want to take you on a journey of understanding, of empathy, of opening our minds to a different way of seeing the world. And I promise you, by the end of our time together, you'll walk away not just with knowledge, but with a transformation in how you relate to the women in your life. You'll walk away with tools that will make your relationships deeper, your communication clearer, and your life infinitely more harmonious. Let me start with something I learned from my own life. When I was younger, still living in the material world before taking sannyas, I remember helping my mother in the kitchen one day. Now, I thought I was being very helpful. She had asked me to make tea, and I made it perfect temperature, perfect color, perfect timing. I brought it to her with such pride, expecting appreciation. And you know what she said? She said, "Thank you, Beta, but did you clean the counter? And did you put the milk back in the fridge? And did you check if your father needed tea too?" I was stunned. I had accomplished the task, made the tea, but she was seeing 10 other things I hadn't even considered. And in that moment, I felt a little irritated, a little defensive. I thought, I did what you asked. Why are you pointing out what I didn't do? But years later, I realized what was happening. My mother wasn't criticizing me. She was operating from a consciousness that sees connections, that understands that making tea isn't an isolated task, it's part of taking care of the whole household, of thinking about everyone's needs, of maintaining harmony in the environment. This is what women do naturally. They think in webs, in networks, in ecosystems. Men, generally speaking, think in lines point A to point B, problem to solution, question to answer. Both are valuable. Both are necessary, but when we don't understand this fundamental difference, we create unnecessary conflict, unnecessary pain, unnecessary distance between us. Now, let me tell you why this matters more today than ever before. We're living in a world that's becoming increasingly complex, increasingly interconnected. The problems we face today, whether in our families, our organizations, our societies, they're not simple anymore. They don't have straightforward solutions. Climate change isn't just an environmental problem. Mental health isn't just an individual problem. Education isn't just about schools and books. Everything is connected to everything else. And this is exactly where the feminine way of thinking becomes not just valuable, but essential. Because women have been trained by nature, by evolution, by centuries of caregiving, to think in these interconnected ways. They don't just see the tree, they see the forest, the soil, the water, the birds, the seasons, the entire ecosystem. And we need this perspective now more than ever. But here's the problem we're facing, and it's a big one. Despite all our progress, despite all our talk about equality and understanding, we're still not truly listening. We're still operating from old conditioning that tells us that logical, linear, analytical thinking is superior. We're still in meetings where women's intuitive insights are dismissed as emotional or not data-driven. We're still in homes where men make decisions based on what seems rational, without considering the emotional and relational implications that women naturally see. And the cost of this, oh, the cost is enormous. I see it everywhere I go. I see marriages falling apart because husbands can't understand why their wives are overreacting to things that seem small. I see talented women in organizations whose brilliant ideas are overlooked because they present them differently, not with aggressive confidence, but with collaborative consideration. I see sons and daughters growing up not learning from their mother's wisdom because fathers inadvertently signal that dad's way of thinking is the right way. Let me share another story with you, because stories help us see ourselves more clearly. I was once counseling a couple, let's call them Rajesh and Priya. They came to me because they were constantly fighting about money. Rajesh would say, I give you a monthly budget. I transfer money to your account. Why do we keep having this same argument? And Priya would say, you just don't understand. So I sat them down and asked Priya to explain. She said, when he gives me a budget, he thinks the problem is solved, but he doesn't understand that managing a household isn't just about money in and money out. Last month, our son needed new shoes, but also his friend's mother fell sick, so I wanted to send some food over. Then my mother called saying she needed help with her medical bills. Then there was a birthday party our daughter was invited to, and we needed to buy a gift. Then the maid asked for an advance because her daughter's school fees were due. Rajesh's budget doesn't account for life. It accounts for groceries and bills, but not for relationships, not for compassion, not for the unexpected human moments that make up our actual lives. And Rajesh sat there, and I could see it on his face. This was the first time he truly understood. He wasn't wrong to make a budget that's practical, that's responsible, but he was incomplete in his thinking. He was seeing the household as a machine that needs fuel. Priya was seeing it as a living organism that needs care, flexibility, and emotional intelligence. This is what I mean when I say women think differently. They're not being difficult. They're not being irrational. They're processing more variables than we often even realize exist. And when we dismiss this as overthinking or being emotional, We're not just disrespecting them, we're cutting ourselves off from wisdom we desperately need. The male brain, speaking in general terms, and please understand I'm talking about tendencies, not absolutes. The male brain is wired for focus. When we're solving a problem, we can tune out everything else. This was useful when we were hunters. Spot the prey, focus on it, catch it, done. Very efficient. But the female brain is wired for awareness of the entire environment. This was useful when women were gatherers and caregivers. You need to watch the children. Notice if someone is hungry. See if someone is upset. Keep track of the seasons. Remember where the best fruits grow. Maintain relationships within the community. You can't afford tunnel vision when you're responsible for keeping everyone alive and connected. These aren't just old evolutionary patterns, they show up in modern brain research too. Studies show that women's brains have more connections between the left and right hemisphere. This means they integrate logical and emotional information more seamlessly. They're not choosing between head and heart, they're using both simultaneously. Men's brains have more connections within each hemisphere, which means we're really good at focused, specialized tasks, but sometimes we miss the bigger picture. Neither is better, both are brilliant. But when we don't understand these differences, we judge each other. Men think women are too emotional, when really they're being emotionally intelligent. Women think men are insensitive, when really they're being focused and solution-oriented. Both are trying to help, but we're speaking different languages. And here's where it gets really interesting. In many traditional cultures, including our own Indian culture, there was an intuitive understanding of this. That's why major decisions were made with consultation between husband and wife. That's why mothers were revered for their wisdom, not just their sacrifice. That's why we have concepts like Ardhanarishvara, the half male, half female form of the divine, suggesting that completeness comes from integration of both perspectives. But somewhere along the way, especially in the modern era, we started prioritizing one over the other. We started saying that emotion is weakness, that intuition isn't reliable, that relationships are less important than results. And in doing so, we created an incomplete world, a world that's very efficient but not very wise. A world that can build amazing technology but struggles with basic human connection. A world that can solve complex equations but can't solve the simple question of how to live together in peace and understanding. So what do we do? How do we bridge this gap? How do we create understanding instead of conflict? The solution begins with something very simple, yet very profound: respect. Not the kind of respect where you say, yes, I respect women, but then don't actually listen to them. I'm talking about deep respect, the kind where you genuinely believe that the woman in front of you, with her different way of thinking, has access to wisdom you don't have. The kind where you're curious instead of defensive. The kind where you ask, help me understand your perspective, instead of saying, let me explain why you're wrong. Let me give you a practical framework. When you're in a conversation with a woman and you're not understanding each other, try this. Instead of trying to make your point, try to understand her web. What I mean by web is this: she's not just thinking about the immediate issue. She's thinking about how it affects everyone involved, how it connects to past experiences, how it will impact the future, how it makes people feel, what the relational consequences are. So, if you're discussing whether to change jobs, for example, and you're presenting all the logical reasons why it's a good move, better salary, better position, better growth, and she seems hesitant, don't dismiss her hesitation as fear or lack of ambition. Ask her, what are all the factors you're considering? And then listen, really listen. She might talk about your children's school adjustment, your aging parents who live nearby, the friends and community you've built, the timing with your daughter's upcoming exams, the stress it will put on the family during the transition. None of these things are irrelevant. None of these things are just emotional. These are real factors that will impact real people's real lives. And if you make a decision ignoring all of this, yes, you might get the better job, but you might also create ripples of difficulty that affect everyone. The woman in your life is seeing these ripples before they happen. That's not overthinking, that's foresight. Another crucial element of the solution is language. We need to change how we talk about these differences. Stop using phrases like "my wife is too emotional" or "women overthink everything." These aren't neutral observations, they're judgments that diminish and dismiss. Instead, try saying, "My wife considers factors I hadn't thought about," or "women often see connections I miss." See the difference. One diminishes, the other appreciates, and women, this applies to you too. When the men in your life seem to be missing the point, they're not being deliberately obtuse. They genuinely see the situation differently. Instead of saying, "You never understand," try saying, "Let me help you see what I'm seeing." Paint the picture for them, explain the connections. Most men genuinely want to understand, they just need help seeing the web instead of the line. Here's another practical tool: create space for both perspectives in decision making. In your family, in your workplace, in your communities, establish a culture where you deliberately seek both the focused, analytical perspective and the holistic, relational perspective. Don't pit them against each other, integrate them. I've seen organizations do this beautifully. They'll have strategy meetings where they first brainstorm the practical, logical steps. This is often where male energy dominates. But then they deliberately shift and ask, how will this impact our team dynamics? What are we not seeing? Who might be affected that we haven't considered? What could go wrong in ways we're not anticipating? This is where female energy often shines. And when you combine both, you get strategies that are both effective and sustainable, both practical and humane. In families, you can do the same. When making decisions, whether it's about children's education, elderly parents' care, financial planning, or even something as simple as planning a vacation, make it a practice to say, "Okay, what's the logical analysis of this?" Get that on the table. But then say, "Now, what are all the other factors we should consider?" And give equal weight to both. I want to share something from our scriptures that beautifully illustrates this. In the Ramayana, when Lord Rama had to make the difficult decision about Sita's Agni Pariksha, it was a purely logical decision from a king's perspective to maintain the kingdom's honor, to uphold Dharma as it was understood then. But the emotional and relational cost was enormous, leading to years of separation and pain. Our scriptures don't shy away from showing us that purely logical decisions, devoid of emotional and relational wisdom, can lead to suffering even when they seem right. Conversely, in the Mahabharata, Kunti's decision to share the boon equally among all 5 brothers, when Karna came, she was thinking relationally, thinking about fairness, thinking about keeping everyone together. Some might call it impractical, but that decision shaped the entire story. Relational thinking isn't less important than logical thinking. It's differently important. Now, I want to address something important because I know some of you might be thinking, "But Gopal Das, aren't you stereotyping? Not all women think one way and all men another way." And you're absolutely right. These are generalizations. There are men who think very holistically and women who think very linearly. There are men who are deeply emotionally intelligent and women who who are very analytically focused. The point isn't to put people in boxes. The point is to recognize that these different ways of thinking exist. They're both valuable, and we need both. In fact, the most successful people I know, regardless of gender, are those who have developed both capacities. They can focus when needed and see the big picture when needed. They can analyze logically and feel empathetically. They can make quick decisions and also consider long-term implications. They've integrated both masculine and feminine ways of thinking within themselves. And this is actually what I want all of you to aspire to. Don't just learn to appreciate the opposite gender's way of thinking. Develop that capacity within yourself. Men, work on your emotional intelligence, your relational awareness, your holistic thinking. Women, strengthen your analytical abilities, your decisiveness, your focused execution. We're not trying to maintain differences, we're trying to become complete human beings who have access to the full spectrum of human wisdom. Let me give you some very practical daily exercises you can do. Men, here's what you can practice. When someone shares a problem with you, resist the urge to immediately offer a solution. Just listen. Ask questions. Try to understand all the layers of what they're experiencing. Your wife comes home and tells you about a difficult day at work. Instead of saying, "Here's what you should do," try saying, "That sounds really challenging. How are you feeling about it?" Notice how the conversation changes. Women, here's what you can practice. When you're overwhelmed by all the factors you're considering, try to identify the top 3 most important ones. Practice prioritizing. Sometimes, not everything has to be considered equally. Some decisions can be made simply and quickly. It's okay to let some things go. It's okay to say, "You know what, this one time, we'll just focus on the main issue and deal with other things as they come." Both of you practice saying, "I see it differently, and that's okay. Let's find a way to honor both our perspectives." This simple sentence can transform conflicts into collaborations. Now, let me talk about why this matters beyond just personal relationships. The world we're building for our children needs this integration desperately. Look at the challenges we're facing: climate crisis, mental health epidemic, social fragmentation, technological disruption. These aren't problems that can be solved with just linear thinking or just holistic thinking. We need both. We need the masculine energy of focus, action, and problem solving, but we also need the feminine energy of connection, care, and systems thinking. We need leaders who can make tough decisions, but also feel empathy. We need organizations that can be efficient, but also humane. We need communities that can progress forward, but also maintain relationships. And the beautiful thing is, when men and women truly understand each other, when we stop competing and start complementing, we become unstoppable. I've seen it in my own life, in our spiritual community. When our male and female leaders work together, truly respecting each other's perspectives, we accomplish things that seem impossible. Projects that seemed doomed suddenly find solutions. Conflicts that seemed unsolvable suddenly dissolve. People who seemed difficult to reach suddenly open up. This is the power of integration. This is what happens when we stop asking, "Who's right?" and start asking, "What's right?" So here's what I want you to do, starting today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because understanding is not just something we learn about. It's something we practice, something we live. First, identify one woman in your life whose perspective you haven't fully appreciated. Maybe it's your mother, who you think worries too much. Maybe it's your wife, who you think complicates simple decisions. Maybe it's your daughter, who you think is too sensitive. Maybe it's a female colleague, whose ideas you've been dismissing. Whoever it is, make a commitment today. I will truly listen to her without judgment. And when I say listen, I don't mean just with your ears. Listen with curiosity. Listen with the intention to understand, not to respond. When she speaks, don't be formulating your counter argument in your head. Don't be waiting for your turn to explain why she's wrong. Actually try to see the world through her eyes. Ask yourself, what is she seeing that I'm not? What wisdom is she offering that I've been missing? Second, have a conversation. Not an argument, not a debate, a conversation. Sit down with the women in your life and ask them, help me understand how you think about things. When we disagree, what am I missing? What do you wish I understood about your perspective? And then, here's the hard part, don't defend yourself. Don't explain, don't justify, just listen. Take notes if you have to. This isn't about proving you're right. This is about becoming wise. Third, make a change in how you make decisions. From today onwards, whether it's at work or at home, before finalizing any decision, ask yourself 2 questions. What am I not seeing? Who else might this affect? These simple questions will help you think more holistically. They'll help you integrate that feminine wisdom into your own thinking. Fourth, and this is for everyone, men and women, become a bridge. When you see misunderstanding happening, help translate. When a man in your life is being dismissive of a woman's concerns, help him see what she's seeing. When a woman in your life is frustrated with a man's insensitivity, help her understand his perspective. We need bridge builders. We need people who can speak both languages, who can help others understand each other. Fifth, teach this to your children. This is so important. Don't let your sons grow up thinking their way of thinking is the only valid way. Don't let your daughters grow up feeling like they're intuitive. Relational wisdom is less valuable than analytical intelligence. Teach them both. Tell your sons, it's wonderful that you solved that math problem, but let's also talk about how your solution might affect others. Tell your daughters, your empathy is a strength, and so is your ability to think strategically. You don't have to choose between being kind and being decisive. Sixth, create practices in your daily life that honor both perspectives. In your morning family meetings or dinner conversations, deliberately ask both. What needs to get done today, and how is everyone feeling? In your work meetings, ask both. What's the most efficient way to do this? And what are we not considering? Who else should we involve? And here's something I want you to commit to. For the next 30 days, every time you find yourself thinking, she's overthinking this, or he's missing the point, pause, stop yourself, and instead think, there's something here I need to understand. There's wisdom here I'm missing. This one, shift in mindset, practiced consistently for 30 days, will transform your relationships in ways you can't imagine. I also want you to apologize where necessary. If you've dismissed someone's perspective, if you've made someone feel like their way of thinking is wrong or less valuable, apologize. Say, I'm sorry, I didn't understand then, but I'm learning now. There's immense power in acknowledging our mistakes. It doesn't make us weak, it makes us humble, and humility is the foundation of all wisdom. Remember, this isn't just about improving relationships, though that's wonderful. This is about becoming more complete human beings. This is about accessing the full range of human wisdom that's available to us. When we integrate both ways of thinking, the focused and the holistic, the analytical and the intuitive, the individual and the relational, we become capable of things we couldn't achieve with just one perspective. Think about water. Water is soft, flexible, adaptive. These are often considered feminine qualities. But water can also cut through stone. can move with tremendous force. These are often considered masculine qualities. The most powerful water doesn't choose one over the other. It integrates both. Be like water. As we come to the end of our time together, I want to leave you with this thought. The reason women think differently isn't a problem to be solved. It's a gift to be received. When you truly understand this, when you truly embrace this, everything changes, your relationships deepen, your decisions become wiser, your impact becomes more sustainable. Your life becomes more balanced. I've spent years studying scriptures, years in spiritual practice, years counseling people, and you know what I've learned. The greatest wisdom doesn't come from choosing masculine over feminine or feminine over masculine. It comes from integrating both. The greatest strength doesn't come from one perspective dominating another. It comes from two perspectives dancing together in harmony. In our spiritual tradition, we don't worship just Shiva or just Shakti. We worship Shiva, Shakti, the union, the integration, because divinity itself is not one or the other. It's both. And we, as human beings trying to live divine lives, need to embody both. So, as you leave here today, carry this with you. The woman who thinks differently from you is not your opponent. She's not your problem. She's your teacher. She's offering you a perspective you don't naturally have. And if you can humble yourself enough to learn from her, if you can open your mind enough to see through her eyes, you will become twice as wise, twice as effective, twice as complete. And women, you too, the men in your life who think differently, aren't trying to frustrate you. They're offering you a different kind of wisdom. When you can appreciate both perspectives, when you can integrate both, you become unstoppable. This is the work we must all commit to, not just for ourselves, but for our families, for our children, for the world we're building together. Because the future doesn't need more men proving they're right or more women proving they're right. The future needs human beings who have integrated both ways of being, who can think with both their head and their heart, who can act with both clarity and compassion. Thank you for your time, thank you for your attention, and thank you for your willingness to grow. May we all become bridges of understanding. May we all learn to see with both sets of eyes. May we all become complete. And may the wisdom we gain today transform not just our relationships, but our entire way of being in this world. Remember, understanding doesn't happen in one conversation. It's a practice. It's a daily commitment. But I promise you it's worth it. Every moment of discomfort, every moment of having to check your ego, every moment of really listening when you want to talk, it's all worth it. Because on the other side of that effort lies something beautiful, true connection, true partnership, true love. Go forth with this understanding, leave it, practice it, share it, and watch as your world transforms, one relationship at a time, one conversation at a time, one moment of true understanding at a time. Thank you, and may you be blessed with the wisdom to see, the humility to learn, and the courage to change.